My new goal in life is to look like Jane Fonda when I'm 80, but I guess she probably looks better than I do right now, so who knows. So I'm going to take an argument that the biggest change out there is the one that we don't talk about, which is the change in the consumer. So we're always talking about the change in technology, media, distribution, but nobody ever remembers to talk about the biggest change, which is the consumer. Right now, it's estimated that consumers see 5,000 brand messages a day, which means you probably ignore 995 of them. So if you just got back from holiday, that day, every day, you're walking past every cruise sign, if you just bought boots, you don't care about the boots. So it's just, our brains now, the best things our brains do is we filter out brand messages all day long. We see a brand message every 11 seconds of our waking life. A little scary? Kinda. So the wild, wild west of media, which we're going to talk about today, I'm going to argue the best way to actually deal with that is to organize yourself and to actually step back and focus on the consumer. Because you have to understand how your consumer shops and how and you have to almost move through. It annoys me every time when I go through an interaction with a brand and I realize they've never interacted with it as a customer. You can kind of tell. When you pull into a hotel and there's no sign of where to park, where to check in, they've never actually experienced it as a consumer. So my argument would be that you should make sure you add clarity to the clutter instead of just more clutter. So everybody talks about getting content out there. I would say get clarity out there. Define your brand within the mess. As consumers, we filter out news all day long. We get too much news. And we talk about when I was a kid. So when I was a kid, cartoons were on Saturday morning. We figured out our sports scores at 11 p.m. I'm old enough to remember that the NBA basketball finals were not live. They were carried at 11:30 at night on tape delay. And I remember my team was playing that night, and they actually said what the score was. So if you don't want to watch the game, here's the score. And I actually refused to listen to the score and kept watching the game till 2 in the morning. That's how bad life was then. Now everything's about instant access. So they filter out every piece of information. So we got a little bit of problem here, but those are actually arrows. The traditional brand funnel, where we yell at every consumer out there to create general awareness, and we hope that leads to purchase and loyalty, has actually changed, and we should figure out the most loyal consumers you have. And so I always ask people, and if there's any brand people in the room, I always ask some of the brand people the same question, and I am always disappointed in the answer I get. Do you treat your best customers better than you treat everybody else? And I always get the answer, no, we treat everybody the same. We have to. We're selling, shampoo. How can we treat anybody better? But think about it. You have to find ways to treat your best customers better. I have a gazillion Aeroplan points, and I would actually love to, instead of flying business class, hope there's no Air Canada people in the room, I would like to fly nice class. Could you imagine you're a million points, you get the actual nice employees. Wouldn't that be great? You get treated better. And that would be a wonderful thing. So this has been the traditional brand funnel we've used. And now what's happened is it's a consumer journey, which is a loop now. So your most influential brand lovers can influence new consumers. We find out information from our friends. We ask for recommendations on a gardener, on someone to plow our driveways in the winter. We know who's good at things, and we know who's bad at things within our network. So we can start to see that we have strategies for each part of the brand journey. And we have to understand where your customer is in order to match them up. Because what we can start to see is there's now a media choice for every part of that journey. And we really only had, 20 years ago, media was mainly to the buy stage. and everything else was the product had to figure itself out. And now we can actually use that last part of the journey to influence other people. And so another thing, those are beautiful arrows. It looks like an upside-down Gulf flag. Those are actually arrows. And what we have is every category, I would say that we have what I call a consumer adoption. So there's the trend influencers, early adopters, early mass, late mass. We've probably all fit into, within a given category, different spots. I actually am a fashion late mass, but on golf, I'm at the early stages. I don't know anything about radios and sound systems, but I know people that do. And so out of our friends within social media, we actually start to understand who's where. So what happens is the trend influencers, they only listen to wise experts. The early adopters will listen to the trend influencers as well as the social icons. And we start to see it keeps going up. Trusted peers, brand lovers, and friends. And so if you're at that late mass, you're kind of a resistor to anything new in a given spot. I don't have gold shoes. Is gold shoes in or out? Or? Yeah, I keep relying that I'm either ahead of fashion or behind fashion because I pretty well wear the same thing all the time. So if you think I'm behind, I'm actually ahead. Awareness with influence is much better than just broad awareness. And that's what we're finding. We know who's really smart at certain things. We rely on them. They tell us what's happening. And so as a brand, you have to figure out who those people are within the network. Another thing to look at is how we use media. So I have up here the 8 basic need states for what we use media for. I'll start here. We want to go somewhere. We want to buy things. We want to do things. We want to be smarter, stay aware, escape, express myself, and connect with others. And what we can start to see is those actually match up to different moods. So we're probably shifting moods every time we move through things. We're in a knowledge state versus getting noticed. Those are two different things. So we're either trying to get smarter on something for an hour, then we go post a picture on Instagram to get noticed. And so you try to understand where your brand fits in, of how your customer is using you. And we can then match that up to the different media choices as well. So we can start to see that there are media choices that match up to any type of mood as well as basic need, okay? So the other question I ask people is, do you know your customers better than you know better than your competitor knows your customers? And I always get the wrong answer as well, which is, no, we don't. So if you don't know your customers better, I would also say to you is that there is only one source of revenue out there, not the products you sell, but the people that buy them. So if you don't know your customers better than your competitors do, you're going to fail. All right, thank you.